This is our cold water pressure in the kitchen. This is where I fill up water for storage. Those are the things we have to fill up to flush the toilets.
So you can see the sediment from the data center. Wow, and that's just from the water coming out of your faucet.
Yeah, and this is what's in all pipes.
So that is the dark side of living near one of the 4,000 data centers in this country. Did you have any idea there were that many? A data center, which is essentially a giant warehouse with millions of servers, and every time you Google something, your device sends a signal to a data center, and in nanoseconds, your device gets a response back. But with demand growing for AI, demand's also growing for these data centers, which are absolutely enormous. One in Texas called Project Matador is as big as 15 Disneylands and uses as much power as the state of Colorado requires every year. It also uses over 1 billion gallons of water per year. And the public, as always, have been basically kept in the dark by companies like Meta and Amazon, who claim they're creating jobs. But what the rest of the media are not talking about is what life is like for people who have homes near these data centers. Water restrictions, no water, higher energy bills, and unbelievable noise. In Georgia, one data center used 30 million gallons of water, leaving residents without any water. In Utah, a data center that's currently under construction is going to require more energy than the entire state of Utah ×2 annually. And after years of climate nonsense and hysteria, apparently billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg don't care about the climate anymore, because a single data center can generate the same amount of heat as 23 atomic bombs being dropped daily. That is a fact. Kristen, Meghan is a senior industrial hygienist and environmental specialist. James Clifton is a real estate attorney and Republican nominee for the Fayette County Board of Commissioners, where one of these Meta data centers is causing a lot of issues. It's great to have you both here tonight. Kristen, so everybody's talking about the water. Can you tell us about something called tonal noise and what that is doing to people who live near these places?
Yeah, so when we're evaluating risk and from an occupational setting, especially placing it in a residential setting, tonal noise is noise that you necessarily don't hear. It has a biological impact. And what it does to livestock, so farmers and ranchers, is it can elevate the cortisol levels, which impedes proper milk production, fertility, and mating cycles in cows and livestock. Horses will engage in self-harm. When it comes to pregnant women, females, it can raise the maternal fetal heart rate, which can cause early birth, low birth weights. For children, it absolutely has an impact on their cognitive abilities to concentrate, have proper reading comprehension. And then the elderly and chronically ill who might have actually implanted devices like pacemakers. Tonal noise is something that happens from the EMF and ELF, so the electromagnetic frequencies and the extremely low frequencies, 24/7. It's highly hazardous, and just so you know, tonal noise was used as a military torture technique.
Wow. James, can you tell us what's going on in Fayette County?
Sure. We have QTS data center here in Fayette County. It is going to be, when completed, one of the largest data centers in the country. It'll be on 900 acres, about 6 million square feet. Fayette County is a suburban community just south of Atlanta, and it is plopped, this data center is plopped right in the middle of our county, and it has been causing disturbances to our county, from traffic to water pressure issues. And some concerned citizens came to me and they asked me to look into the water usage. Since QTS came to town, they and our elected leaders and the Development Authority have been telling us that they will only use 2,000 gallons of water per day. So I submitted some open records requests, and I was shocked to find that they actually used 70 million gallons in the last year, which is approximately 100 times what they had told us that they would use.
Who pays for that?
Yep.
Who pays for that? Who pays for that?
So they actually do pay for that, but they get a preferential rate as an industrial ratepayer.
Okay,
But
so they're not
they
paying what
pay
private
for-
citizens are
Yeah,
paying.
so they pay for that. And buried in that open records request, I found a letter from the Fayette County water system to QTS that said that they had tapped into a residential water main unknown to the county, and that they had siphoned off almost 29 million gallons of water.
My goodness.
So that
Okay.
was quite a shock, and that kind of brought us into the national spotlight. Since then, the Fayette County water system has said that QTS is actually a partner and that it was a billing error on that part. Well, today,
Oh, it's just a billing error. Okay.
right,
A billing
exactly.
error. Let me,
That
all right,
was
Kristen,
quite interesting phrasing from them.
and each one
so
of these
today I
data
submitted-
centers, hold on, James, let me just bring Kristen back in. Each one of these data centers claim, and this is really important, they all say, and you go online and people are being compensated to debunk this, they all say, no, you don't have to worry about the water because once we get the water we need, it's a closed loop system. But that's not exactly accurate, Kristen, is it?
No, it's not accurate. And I will say to Kevin O'Leary, I do not work for China. See, anytime that someone is claiming that there's a closed loop system, it is false. You have something called evaporated cooling. Anytime they're using water, they have to use biocides, anti-corrosives, and they have to discharge that water and refill it. And even closed loop systems can still use up to 5 million gallons of water a day. And they're often placing these in places that have very low aquifers. And that's why the video that you showed in the opening, it lowers the water pressure because these wells and aquifers are not being refilled at a rate that is up with the demand of these data centers.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Kristen, why are they being built in areas that are already dealing with drought all over the country?
You know, I'm also very confused about that, but I do know that these data center companies are looking for weak zoning laws, struggling farmers and ranchers for false promises of return of investments that are not really coming to fruition. So it's a head scratcher for me also, but the irony is there is better engineering controls, there's better technology, there's smaller footprints, there's better ways to do this. And I'm
Right.
not against AI. I'm against the rush in doing it improperly.
Yeah, and why do we need so many of these things so quickly? I think that's very suspect. James, I've got 30 seconds, but do you think these centers could be used for surveillance, military surveillance, to monitor private citizens? You know, mass surveillance, 4,000 of these all across the country and more being built every month?
Of course, that is one of the aspects that data centers can be used for. That's why I believe that's why we see such a high concentration of them in Loudoun County, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And I think that it's a critical aspect, especially with visual types of AI where they have to identify certain things like flock cameras, self-driving cars, and things like that, that they are going to be used to monitor us indefinitely. And I want to say real quick, thank you to the people of Fayette County for putting your faith in me in the May 19th election.
Absolutely. I'll just add to that, by the way, just final thought on the sound. So some of these, our sound is anywhere between 90 and 120 decibels, which would be like sleeping next to somebody in the room who's operating a power tool. Think about that, and think about people that, you know, have worked so hard to buy a home and suddenly one of these things goes up and it's right next door and you're dealing with that every single day, 24 hours a day. They never turn them off. Kristen, Meghan, James, Clifton, hope to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.